Kadena fam, hello, good morning. Welcome back to Kadena Campfire Community Call number 32, featuring Nik and a mystery guest. This is gonna be a really exciting one. I'm gonna bring Nik up onto the stage first. Hey Nik, how you doing, man?
Hey, Tyler. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty great, pretty great. Stoked as always for this campfire and so excited to be here. And I'm so excited to introduce our mystery guest. So we're gonna bring him up on stage now. It's
Hey,
Nam. Hey Nam, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty great. So I'm all one for building a little bit of suspense. So maybe we'll let the sleuths try and figure out who you are. I'm gonna get some updates for Kadena, and then we're gonna give you a proper introduction, talk to you, and we're gonna have a great time today on the campfire. Does that sound
Sounds,
okay to you?
sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, I have been signed out of my updates notes. That is always exciting. It's been a fun technical glitch morning, as you can see from my ethereal video. But we're back. We got some updates. Amazing. Okay, so, well, I guess I should give a little welcome for folks that don't know campfires, right? Community-driven insight. We like to have these spaces to allow folks in the community to ask questions and talk everything Kadena. We have a rotating cast of characters that come on the stream. We have a Nam today. We got Nik. We've had everyone from our Chief Marketing Officer, Mike, that was last week. Awesome campfire. If you missed that one, go check it out. So that's one quick update. You missed Mike's introduction to the Kadena community. Go check out that campfire. It was freaking awesome. It was firing off. Next up, Kadena launched on Zeely with currently over 3,100 participants. Kind of amazing. So yeah, look at that. Check out that quest board below. If you missed it, there's all sorts of cool and incentives and rewards and cool things to get going and earn Zeely experience and showcase your ability to turn heads in the Kadena community. So definitely check that out. We also have the YouTube link for Mike's campfire from the other day. Next up, we have a really cool new hire to announce. NZ joined Kadena as our new creative director. He's a brilliant designer, 3D artist, and animator who will help push Kadena's brand and story. So that's pretty freaking awesome. Definitely check out the Twitter post and would love your help in welcoming NZ to the Kadena fam, the Kadena crew. Next, our head of developer relations, Glenn, will be speaking at React India. So for those that are in the JavaScript community or local in India, you may want to check that out. Should be a great session. Second to finally, Marmalade V2 is now live on testnet, and a mainnet launch is imminent. Thanks to everyone so much for giving feedback on Marmalade V2. I know this has been a much anticipated release that fills in some of the gaps and adds a bunch of new functionality to Marmalade to make it better than ever before. But I think that'll be a really, really exciting launch on mainnet, and having on testnet is already driving a lot of functionality and stuff. And then I also want to quickly look at folks that are here on the stream. This is amazing. I already see some questions coming in, people coming in. Frank Faxis says, Hyperlane. Wow, that was before we started. Someone leaked it. Very, very cool. What's up, everyone? Hello, everyone. Great to see people here. Hey, Noah. Hey, Adrian. Yeah, so excited to see everyone in the house. This is awesome. I'm actually going to give one last impromptu update, then I want to hear from Nam. The impromptu update is I saw a thread on Reddit where someone was like, hey, how many developers does Kadena have? And someone posted like the Chain Weaver repo and the Pact repo, and they're like, well, here are all the people that are actively contributing. Something that's amazing about Kadena is because the project has become fairly stable as a technology platform, most of the development now is actually happening at the application layer in Pact. So the best way, if you want to look at the activity developing on Kadena, is to do something like look at what Pact files are being written, what code is being committed to the blockchain. I've informally been running a check-in every few months. I'll take a look here. And what blew me away was about a year ago in August, there was around 450 different Pact files on GitHub. And yesterday when I looked, there was 4,100 Pact files on GitHub. So pretty freaking incredible. That's to say that there's literally 8 times the amount of open source Pact code today than there was 12 months ago. So I just thought I'd share that as a quick update, as just like a pretty freaking wow, developers, you guys are kicking ass and taking names. I mean, that's absolutely amazing to see an 8 times increase in the amount of Pact code out there. So I just think that's a testament to the huge momentum in the development community around Kadena and Chainweb. So I wanted to just give a shout out to all the developers for that amazing work and accomplishment. And without further ado, ma'am, would love to hear a little bit about you. I imagine we've built some anticipation now. Someone seemed to have put together the pieces already, but what's up, man? We'd love to hear who you are and what you work on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very excited to, I think, start talking a little bit more about, I think, the conversations that, I think Nik and I and others have had about, I think, the work that we can do together between, Hyperlane and Kadena. So, my name is Nam. I'm the CTO working on Hyperlane. And Hyperlane itself is an interoperability protocol that basically allows, right, like a smart contract on one chain to talk to a different smart contract on a different chain. And like we just fundamentally believe that, right, like blockchains, the fundamental technology that we are all built on is really cool and amazing. And I think we just don't believe that like a single ecosystem will kind of like dominate everything. Instead, it will be all of these different communities like Kadena, like Ethereum, like Solana, kind of all working together to ultimately kind of build this like new frontier, right, like of financial and other technology. And so we've kind of like, with this vision, the way we want to think about how we can support that vision is to kind of build basically what we call the routes between these kind of different ecosystem, and that's what interoperability is. And very excited to talk more about kind of like how an interoperability protocol like Hyperlane can help support kind of the vision of a community like Kadena's to kind of further spread its reach.
Awesome, man. So great to hear that. I've been catching up a little bit in the chat while you've been talking, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with. I like this, Jabari Carter. Can't wait to see the Kadena K everywhere. Hell yeah! Apparently, Ryan Milletti has a dark mode version of that. That's pretty cool. Hadn't realized that Unicode had adopted Kadena as a logo. Always a fan, and just so great to have everyone here. And some people also seem to have. Let's see here. Welcome, Nan from Barbaric Puma. Incredible. And I see a lot of folks that are. Look at that. People figuring out what's going on. So very, very, very fun. All right, I have a couple topics and teasers that I want to kind of bring up. So one is, would love to talk a little bit more about cross-chain interoperability. I know you've introduced Hyperlane briefly, but in particular, would be really interesting to dive into what sets Hyperlane apart from other bridges and routers and messages.
Yeah, what we say, I think bridges obviously have been around for a while, have maybe been in the news, and I think one of the challenging things about bridges is that like it's not something that you just want to do on the side, right? Like I think historically speaking, all of chains kind of like just figured out, there's like big chains maybe like Ethereum, and then like how can we get a bridge to Ethereum? And I think we basically took a step back and thought about, okay, like what are the fundamentals that like you need to do a bridge? And I think ultimately what you need to bridge is basically what people call like a general message passing protocol. And we figured out basically like, hey, what's important in that, right? It's basically allow, again, the smart contracts to basically exchange information and exchange state to kind of like have applications that are built on top, right? Like assets or like NFTs or anything else to kind of understand how to share that state to other blockchain environments. And so that's kind of like fundamentally what an interoperability protocol is. And on top of that, right, like you can build token bridges, you can build NFT bridges, all kinds of bridges. And I think the key part that I think we've focused on is basically twofold, right? Like one is that that problem of basically how can a smart contract on one chain know what happened on the other chain is a very hard problem. It's a very hard problem. There's no single solution. Ultimately, it kind of is a trade-off that depends very much on the context of the application. And so we do what we call modular security, which basically allows a message that is being sent to be verified with different modules, right? With different verification mechanisms, right? It can be very simple, like a proof of authority set, as heavily as a ZK-like client that basically actually runs the kind of consensus protocol in ZK. And so that's kind of one aspect of the cross-chain interoperability kind of game that I think we are innovating upon. And then the second part is what we call permissionless interoperability, right? The idea that if you are a blockchain today, right, and you would like to have interoperability with other chains, you don't need to ask a central bridge provider to basically do work, and also you don't have to trust the central bridge provider with kind of that connection. And that's, I think, why, right? I think Nik and I have started talking a couple of months ago because, right, we are not actually doing any of the work, right? We've kind of built the blueprint of this protocol, we've built the framework, we've built the tooling around it, but ultimately the operations and even implementation of having Kadena be supportive in the Hyperlane protocol is not actually something that we have to do at all, right? You don't rely on us as the core developers of the protocol to have to do any work. And so those are the two kind of aspects of cross-chain interoperability that I think we are innovating upon.
Hey, Nik, would love kind of your thoughts and contextualization here. I mean, I know you've been looking at the DeFi and the bridge space here. I'm just really curious what you've kind of been seeing on the sort of more macro megatrends level.
I didn't want to interrupt that from Nam. I mean, the guy is living the dream. He loves this stuff, and he's building one of the best projects in the space. So, yeah, I mean, look, the bridging issue with blockchains has always, I think the last time I was on the Campfire, we talked about what is imperative for us, and I think if you watch back the video, we talked about security, we talked about decentralization, we talked about scalability, and we've obviously had discussions, and before my time at Kadena, and I think there was another kind of potential bridge, which I mean the code is open source still if anyone wanted to pick that up, but it wasn't a decentralized bridge. It was a centralized bridge, and having a grantee who wanted to come in and kind of connect Kadena into the Hyperlane highway is exactly what we were looking for, and that's what the grants program was kind of built for, to help people contribute to the grander scheme of things with projects like this kind of integration. Without wanting to necessarily delve into all the technicals, immediately, the decentralized element comes from, anyone being able to run a relayer. So, literally, even though just maybe one person is building it, anyone could technically run their own relayer if they wanted to. So it's, it just fit with, Stuart and Will's ethos of decentralized. It fit with the scalability that obviously Kadena can offer going forward, and look, from a security perspective, don't want to jinx it, but the ISMs are something that can be tweaked, and it's part of that, is actually part of what sets Hyperlane apart from a lot of the other routers, so to speak. And multi-chain kind of going through whatever issues they had, it kind of validates a grantee coming to us and saying, we love Hyperlane, let's get that built. So yeah, that's it. And Megatrend, I see Web3 and Web2. It's going to be, Web3 could be the plumbing for if we kind of conquer Web2. And I really feel like Hyperlane and the Hyperlane product and architecture can be a big part of that plumbing.
Terrific, Nik. That was an awesome answer. I realized I just sort of assumed that everyone already knows you, and I'd never properly introduced you. So I'm going to do that a little bit belatedly now that we got a few more people on the stream. Nik, of course, is on the biz dev team at Kadena and specialized. He's the head of the DeFi vertical. And so, yeah, I see we got a bunch of questions. People already know you clearly in the chat, but for the couple that don't, there you go. I had a couple other topics I wanted to jump into, and then we'll jump into more of the live Q&A. I've been hearing this buzzword around quite a bit of modular blockchains. I was wondering if I could bother one of you to first of all, for those that aren't in the know, what the heck does modular blockchains mean? Why should we care, and how does that impact the conversation today?
Yeah, happy to take a stab at that question. It's definitely a topic, modular blockchains, that is we've kind of like bet a lot of like kind of the prospects of our protocol on. And the idea behind modular blockchains is that, right, like I think from when Kadena started, right, like for a couple of years now, like when somebody had the idea of like, oh, like I have this idea for like this feature in a blockchain that doesn't exist in an existing blockchain, and now I want to go launch my own blockchain, there like are a bunch of things that one has to figure out, right? Like they have to figure out consensus, has to figure out data availability, figure out like block explorers, node operators. It's just like a bunch of stuff that has to happen for you to launch your own blockchain. And obviously that meant that like not everybody could just do it. Like it required substantial resources to basically launch a blockchain. And over time, what we've seen is that more and more folks are basically able to focus on like one part of the blockchain stack, right? Like, again, consensus, data availability, execution, like these kind of like very technical terms, but it allowed basically these people to kind of like focus on just that part of the stack and made that available to other folks. So basically that like today, if you want to build a blockchain, if you want to have this kind of idea for like, oh, I want a blockchain, but for this, or I want to like roll up, but this for that, like you are able to spin up a blockchain in a much easier fashion with kind of like much more reasonable security and like liveness assumptions. And that just means that there's going to be many, many blockchains, right? Like I think on the Ethereum ecosystem side, we're seeing like this very like big excitement about like Ethereum rollups. And there's still a lot of different ways, right? There's a lot of different stacks to deploy rollups. Like we see like, right, like Celestia rollups. Like Celestia thought like, hey, like we can do DA better than if you just post it onto Ethereum. And so there's kind of like this basically explosion of like infrastructure that allows people to create custom blockchains that kind of are like customized to the needs of a particular application, right? And I think we see that the kind of original originator of that kind of idea has been, I think, the Cosmos ecosystem, right? With the app chain thesis, with this idea that applications will want to like kind of create their own block space through that. But I think it still requires substantial resources. And as we see with somebody like DYDX launching their own blockchain, right? Like it's still not something that just kind of happens over the weekend. But the idea of the modular blockchain thesis basically is that like we are able to have these different parties basically work on different parts of the stack, and then therefore make it easier to kind of build more optimized, better, cheaper, like more scalable blockchains. And then for us as Hyperlane, right, like we see that and we kind of believe in this like large universe of kind of all these different blockchains. Like we call them basically planets, and Hyperlane can be the kind of trade route that connects all of these different blockchains together so that we can have this like, you know, very rich universe of blockchains and their applications that, hopefully moves our industry forward, where we just make it easier and easier to build, superior applications.
Very, very cool. Yeah. Man, I think that's fascinating, right? It's taking a look at this monolithic thing, right? Back in the day, it was Bitcoin or bust. That was it. It was only Bitcoin. Like a monolith, you could do exactly what it said you could do and not much else. And sure, some people got really creative using Bitcoin script, but it was a pain in the ass to do anything. You know, you can kind of approximate an NFT, but and now we have this completely other direction, which is saying, look, people are building these reusable, composable pieces where you can take and mix and match different things. And yeah, that's a cool future. I like it.
Okay.
Cool. I have a couple pre-asked questions from Discord that I want to jump to. This one might be a bit of a Nik question from George P. When layer 2 for fast apps?
Yeah. Hey, George P. I think he's Kadena Greece. So big shout out to Kadena Greece, and I'm seeing some Greek fans in the crowd. So Yeah, I mean, look, layer 2, it's something that we're really keen on, something we're working on, and you know, like we've been chatting about L2s with Randy earlier today, John Wigley, CTO, yesterday, Emily, I think, you know, last week. Everyone is extremely excited. Give me what? That's my doorbell ringing. I don't know who it is. I told everyone to leave me alone. But so it's it's something that we're all excited about and we're all working on, and we're kind of coming up with a couple of different proof of concepts in terms of how it's going to work. You know, it's not early, but you know, we're not rushing it. It's you know, this Hyperlane integration as well is going to be extremely interesting for and like even feeds into how it looks eventually. When, you know, look, I'm sorry, I don't, you know, I'm not going to be able to say when, but soon, you know, that's the best thing. I think the last time I was on Campfire, it was like when Bridge. We got a mystery guest on today, Nam, who is, you know, working there for Hyperlane. So maybe in like, you know, a month's time, 2 months' time, 3 months' time, maybe we'll have, you know, another mystery guest, and it'll be a layer 2. So who knows? But look, it's hopefully it comes across that it's obviously a very important for us, and something we're interested in.
Right on. Got a question from Ivan KDA. When will there be decentralized Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, USDC, and bridges?
I mean, look, I'm going to ignore the when, and I'm just going to say, like, look, there will be decentralized. You know, it's going to be like, I mean, I don't quite get it in terms of like the decentralized aspect of it, but it, you know, Hyperlane obviously allows you to import, export, do whatever you want with any of those tokens. You know, in a decentralized manner. So, you know, with bridges, with routers, etc., you know, you're going to be able to do whatever you want and import and export. And if you look at the Hyperlane kind of network of networks, it's you know, it's connected to Cosmos. You've got, actually, it's coming. Cosmos is coming, I think, or it's not quite done yet. But you've got Evmos on there, even from Cosmos. So technically speaking, there's interoperability there. You've got Moonbeam, which was, I think, one of the earliest kind of adopters of Hyperlane in Polkadot. And you've got Arbitrum, Optimism. So there's loads of different stuff coming. Like, you know, hopefully when it gets integrated and launched, there's going to be a lot of different options available for people. And it brings stables to Kadena, which everyone's been waiting for.
Awesome. We're just going like popcorn right now, Nick. I love this, man. We gotta have you on more often. You're so efficient and to the point, and you answer the question directly. I love it. From Uncle Albert 23. Wow, let's just take a moment to let that soak in. Will Marmalade V2 target real world assets?
Look, that's a great question. Look, it's worth mentioning as well, because Marmalade V2 is a kind of NFT platform, etc. And I think Hyperlane allows NFTs to be, you know, messaged across chain as well. So, you know, the Hyperlane integration and Marmalade, and even Marmalade V2, which I think is close to launch, means that you could do some crazy stuff. And if your NFTs do get linked to real world assets, then, you know, I don't think it's necessarily going to target it, Uncle Albert, but it will definitely be, you know, a key focus of it. And, you know, anyone will be able to mint their own NFTs and create your own NFT marketplace. And if you want to do real world assets, you can do it on Marmalade V2 and transport them to places with Hyperlane.
Yep. Just want to add maybe to the last two questions that, yeah, like I think once you have a Hyperlane implementation, right, like once Kadena is connected to the broader network of all the other chains supporting Hyperlane, then bridging over assets and bridging like both like fungible assets, like, yeah, like the big ones like BTC, ETH, USDC, USDT, as well as non-fungible assets, very easily kind of transferable between, yeah, again, forever that come from to Kadena, and as well as the other way around, right? And so it allows applications of Kadena to have access to like liquidity that maybe it wasn't able to before, but also interestingly allows, right, like applications from, let's say, the Ethereum or like Cosmos ecosystem to kind of like have them be accessible to Kadena users as well. And so I think there's definitely, obviously there's a bunch of like infrastructure work that has to happen, but like I think the path is clear.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think seeing that integration and that infrastructure connection, one of the exciting things for me about how the Web3 ecosystem works in general is this aspect where people don't need to ask for permission. You can just start building and connecting things. And sometimes people connect things in ways that are very predictable. They're like, oh, that's obvious. Someone's going to do that because it's a big opportunity. And then other times people connect things in ways that totally shock you and surprise you and come up with all sorts of sometimes elegant, sometimes horrendous, the whole spectrum of creativity. And ultimately, the market figures out what's good and what's useful, and that sticks around. So that
Nam knows all about that, Tyler. Nam knows all about that.
We're big permissionless fans, right? Like I think if you think about like what's the one quality of kind of like this technology that we're all working on that hasn't existed before, it's the permissionless part, right? Like I think we think of it similar, like it was like why the internet was so beautiful, right? Like before the internet, like if you wanted to like tell people about a story, like you had to like convince a newspaper, you had to convince like a TV station, and like right, like if you're in your basement, like you're probably not going to have a chance. Like you need substantial resources to basically acquire those and then like get that going. And right, like today for media, like you just need a phone in the basement, you get like a YouTube video or a TikTok video up, and like it allowed for like a much larger amount of creativity to kind of reach its audience. And we think that blockchains with its permissionless nature to like program value will have exactly the same effect, but obviously on like a scope that I think isn't media, but just like more broadly value. And I think we can't even yet imagine like what people will do with that. And we're very excited to, again, hopefully play our part in that role to basically let different kind of block space kind of like offer its services to kind of like the broader world.
I love that point. It reminds me of this service that always blows my mind when I have to use it, called Plaid. Anyone that's American probably knows what I'm talking about. When you have to connect your bank account to Venmo or someone else, there's this literally insane thing that happens. It's sort of obfuscated by UI. A little box pops up and it's like, hey, please type in your Bank of America bank account, login information, or your Chase login information. And this is like the only time in computers that I'm aware that you do this, but it's like, it's not the Bank of America website. It's not the Chase website. You literally give Plaid your login. They take your username and password and they store it like in their own systems. They have complete access to your account. And that's the only way to do banking API. And like hundreds of millions of Americans, myself included, have no option other than to literally give away what is effectively your private key to some freaking third-party company that then like allows you to, I don't know, look at your finances better. I mean, it's insane that this is the state of like the Web2 finance world. Like literally, that is the current state of art practice. And like in crypto, we can look at that and be like, I don't swear on the stream much. What the fuck, guys? Like, why are we giving our private keys to like some third-party company that could literally rug pull America? I guess they're not gonna because Congress will get it after them or whatever. But yeah, like now I'm so with you, right? The reason why that's a problem is because the big banks, you have to ask permission to integrate with them, and it's really hard. And how much better is a world where anyone can build systems and they can be trustless and decentralized and transparent, and there isn't consolidation of power where one entity holds the private keys for hundreds of millions of Americans.
I mean, look, Tyler, Nam dropped in there a tiny little nugget earlier on, which may have gone over a lot of people's heads, but he mentioned those two magic letters, ZK, and like I mean, John, our CTO, extremely knowledgeable, extremely keen, and very, very interested in the Hyperlane technicals based on what can potentially be done. I'm not sure if it's massive alpha, but I do believe that there is someone who's working on a ZK version of a relayer. And, once that relayer is created for one chain to another chain connection, it can be then basically spread for any. That's the absolute beauty of it. And suddenly, from one person innovating on it, on the relayer side, you can add ZK across all of the different ports. So that would absolutely, you can enter your data without anyone even needing to know your data, and it can be verified that that's your data, and that would solve your problem. We're probably a few years off, but that was another reason that we were very, very happy with Hyperlane's selection by a grantee.
Amazing. I got a few. There's a bunch of live ask questions I want to get to. First, I want to go to Iskander Saucy, who amazingly asked this question 6 hours before the live stream began on YouTube. So props, Iskander, for the new record on how early a question has been asked. With USDC coming to Kadena, does this mean we will see KDA USDC pool or other pools with USDC?
I mean, that's a question for the Dexers, and I don't see why not. I don't think we'll do the Hyperlane integration and like leave USDC out. The whole purpose of it is there will be, if people want to use the routers to ship USDC into Kadena, or then you're going to get pools. You're going to have pools on the other chains as well, which will probably be KDA USDC as well, I would assume. But again, this is all permissionless. It's all decentralized. It's a yes or a no if you want it to be. So, you're asking the question, you can answer it as well. That's the beauty of it.
Right on. I see we got a question from the famous Randy Dynamic, the Chief Experience Officer of Kadena, has dropped his head in here. A question for Nam. What is Hyperlane's most impressive accomplishment so far?
Yeah, look, I think I'm biased, but I think the thing that I think when I think about the last 2 weeks, or whenever I'm like, oh wow, like we've done this, I think the most impressive thing, or the thing I'm most proud of, is basically to make interoperability like truly permissionless, right? Like I think we talked to a bunch of folks, right, like who again like have spun up their own blockchain or are like a big kind of application on the blockchain, and they just feel like, oh man, I like want interoperability elsewhere. And it's just like so clear that in the market today, like either you have to like talk with a very centralized like large bridge provider, and like either spend a bunch of your BD resources, time, and money to kind of convince them to come to your chain and support your chain so that you can add a bridge, or you have to build it yourself, right? But then obviously like you're not going to be a bridge expert, and like you don't want to be kind of like reinventing the wheel. And I think for us to kind of see folks being able to just like go to our docs and like deploy Hyperlane on their chain, and then therefore kind of like unlock that kind of interoperability for that ecosystem, for that community, I think is the thing that I'm like, yeah, for sure most proud of. And obviously we have like lots of room to make that easier, to support more chains, to support more execution environments, make it easier to build these kind of like applications, right? Where like you can maybe buy an NFT from any other chain that is supported on Hyperlane. Like there's a lot of like very, very cool things that we can see ahead. But the thing that like I'm most proud of today is that like you actually have an interoperability protocol that is permissionless. And I think that is something that as far as we can tell, we're still the only ones. And yeah, very proud of that.
Awesome. I have a question that was just asked on Discord from Raphael. Been hearing more about monolithic and modular, and Kadena going modular. Can you explain, like I'm 5, why it's better? So yeah, maybe I could pass the modular aspect to you, and then Nik, if you want to take the Kadena specific side of that.
I'll do my best. Go for it, Nam. Hit us with it.
Yeah, so I definitely will admit that I think my Kadena specific knowledge, or like the stack that Kadena is using, is definitely limited compared, I think, to obviously folks, the rest of the folks here on the call. But basically, the general gist of like why is it better to become more modular, is that it allows, right, like basically when you think of, again, like the stack, let's say the blockchain stack being like consensus, being like the data availability layer, building the execution layer, it basically allows independent improvements onto each part of the stack without needing to kind of like work across the stack, right? Like once you have to touch everything, like just complexity increases and it becomes much harder to kind of like improve things. And by basically modularizing the kind of like the stack of the platform that you're working on, you allow for both A, independent improvements, but also B, right, like you can actually allow, right, like, oh, what if we support 2 execution environments, right? Like my understanding is that like Pact is a smart contract language on Kadena, right? But like you could imagine like, oh, what if we had like an EVM execution environment, right? Like what if we had like a WASM-based execution environment? And you kind of like basically, as long as you can still reuse the underlying layers of like data availability or like consensus, you kind of allow basically for like a evolutionary view of like improving, I think, the overall platform. And I think that's something that, yeah, I guess think the broader ecosystem is definitely kind of coming around on that. Like, look, like a single party is not going to be able to like improve such a critical thing like a blockchain, like across all layers. And I think by modularizing, you basically allow different people to work on different parts of the stack and therefore improve it independently and make the whole thing better.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Nik.
he's basically, look, he's done my job for me, Nam. Thank you so much, because I mean, look, we're talking specifically on what he's just mentioned. This is what L2s for us could be. And you have that. I don't really like the word monolithic. I feel like monolithic is maybe a bit condescending for the work that went on before. Like I don't want, you can't just suddenly kind of call what was groundbreaking at the time monolithic. It's the first airplane, yeah, it's monolithic, but they didn't have airplanes before that, did they? So I don't know. I don't want to take away from that work, but definitely L2s is a methodology for Kadena becoming more modular. Pact as a smart contract language. Some of the proof of concepts that at least I'm aware of for what L2s could look like have L2s running as a smart contract. So it's really how much do you want to modularize it. So it's yeah, look, that's I would say the Kadena perspective.
Right on. I see we got a bunch of questions still in the live comments. We're going to try and get to as many as we can. So maybe we'll go a little bit popcorn style as we're coming towards the end of our time here. So I see one from New Type. Are you talking with other bridges such as Squid Router or Axelar to learn from them?
Nam, are you talking with them?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, I think we're probably both talking to them, but yeah, like we're certainly talking. I think, yeah, with Squid and Axelar. It's like, I think as interoperability protocol in this space, like I think you always have to understand obviously what other folks are doing. And I think obviously like we've had the benefit of being able to see and talk with them again about kind of like their approach. And like we expect that like, or like again, the modular route that we have taken, right, is to take verification basically out as a module, right? Like we as Hyperlane, we aren't really like competing on the verification layer. And so you are actually able to use, right, like Axelar as a ISM inside the Hyperlane protocol. And we basically believe that like, yeah, like people will innovate on this verification layer, right? Like there will be proof of stake validator based sets like Axelar, there will be ZK like client teams that are working on building the ISMs. And like we would like our view is that like there's no need to take a side. Like we should support them all and let applications, right? Like let the market basically decide for a given application, like how they want to choose a trade-off between security, latency, and cost.
Very cool. See another question from Alcide Kadena. Can you guys talk a bit about how Pact is ideal for Hyperlane integration?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably take that one. I mean, it's I think Nam said this right at the beginning. The Hyperlane highway is smart contracts talking to smart contracts, and obviously Pact is unique in its feature set, which hopefully I don't need to tell everyone who's listening what that is, because I'm pretty sure 1,000 people have done that better than I could do, on other campfires. But it means that it's quite a nice integration. I mean, I think we're about halfway through, and the team that's been building it has had a lot of fun using Pact and getting creative, and it's doing what it's supposed to be, and I feel like it's hopefully going to be as quick or slightly quicker than some of the integrations on Cosmosm, and I don't know, it might be a bit quicker than what they did on Moonbeam and with Substrate as well, just because they were so early. But at the same time, yeah, look, there's loads of features that are helping.
Cool. Got time for a couple more questions here. I might take, let's see here. Oh, actually, this is a new one that just came in. Might take this for Nik, or rather for Nam, and then Nik, I'll give you one last question, and then we'll kind of wrap up with concluding thoughts. But from Justil, what design decisions has Hyperlane made to address the common issue of fragmented state, which arises in modular blockchain solutions due to the distribution of state across multiple blockchains?
Yeah.
In the no question.
So I guess the short answer, or like the easy answer maybe, is that, right, like we don't. Like, I think the situation that I think we find ourselves is basically remember like what, the 70s or 80s, when like there were just like single large mainframe computers, and right, like all the state was on those computers. And like obviously we now live in a world where like state is like spread across many different computers, many different machines, and obviously that is like harder to manage than like just if every state was just on a single machine. And so we certainly like see this in our conversations with developers, right? It is harder to build kind of an application that crosses multiple blockchains versus doing so in a single blockchain context. But right, like similar how today very few people build, right, like classic Web 2 applications with the idea of like everything running on a single computer. We just expect that the same thing will happen across multiple blockchains. And yeah, that we have built, right, like kind of like we're starting to build abstractions and toolings that kind of help developers with kind of like dealing with basically the state being distributed, right? It's a classic distributed systems problem. But that's definitely going to be, I think, the reality. And so unless you believe that like, yeah, maybe like a single monolithic chain like Solana can scale to encompass the whole universe of value transfers, or like value applications, like that's just going to be inevitable.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. Nik, I got one last question for you, and then I might actually turn over a similar question to Nam after to conclude. From So Crypto, what are the next big features and excitement that we can look forward to from Kadena?
I mean, there's a lot. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm tired because I've been working, like, I'm not trying to just say I'm like, just for the sake of it, but there is so much going on, honestly. We've covered off some of them already. Like, L2's super exciting for me. I mean, it has so many different applications. We're talking with some really interesting enterprise Web 2, small, medium, and large. If you had to like gun to the head on what would be the next one, it would be ZK, zero knowledge, and a lot of the stuff that we're looking at and doing there. So those two. But look, don't take away also the Pact team, the DX team, constantly working on just improving all the developer tooling, the Pact smart contract itself, and that's the core. That's the we maybe don't mention that enough of just how much work goes on in just permanently improving developer tooling and making Pact even more efficient. So that's an answer from me.
Terrific. Nam, I got the same question for you. what are the next big features and excitement we can look forward to from Hyperlane?
Yeah, I think the biggest, the things that I can't name names, but the things that I'm most excited about is, like I think what Kadena is doing with Hyperlane. There's a few other folks that are doing that, right? Like the idea is that, like, hey, if you have this open permissionless protocol, it invites, right? Like it invites collaboration. It invites people kind of like working together to kind of like spread the idea of interoperability with everybody else further. And so there's some very, I think, exciting collaborations that hopefully will able to lift a lift on, where we realize that, like, look, like we just built the open protocol and we let other people kind of join in and kind of provide their contributions to kind of connect their ecosystem to it. And so I think that's definitely the kind of big thing that we're excited about. We've also working on auditing right now the V3 version of the protocol, which makes further simplifications for developers to be able to leverage, again, what we call like alternate verification methods, and to kind of further increase the security of the protocol. And so those are the two things that, I think I'm just very excited to get through the door. And I think, like like Nik, definitely also a bit tired of all the stuff that's happening.
Don't forget V3, Nam. What about V3?
Yeah, so that's right. Like that's the part that I just mentioned where, like, I think like it makes the developer experience of like leveraging other verification mechanisms like Axelar or Wormhole much easier. And I think that's ultimately, again, all what we're about here, right? Is to make it easy to build secure and decentralized bridges.
Amazing. Well, they say Metcalfe's law claims that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of nodes or devices connected to it. And it was first described for the telecommunications network. But I think there's definitely some degree of truth that systems, and in crypto and Web3, systems that can talk to each other, there's this amazing effect, right? Where once it gets to a large enough size, the value, I think, that's delivered of using that system takes off. So big fan of permissionless, big fan of what you're doing at Hyperlane. So excited about this Kadena integration. And it's been a delight, Nik and Nam, to have you both on here. NNN. To watch out, M&Ms. We got a second coming that's going to take off. So thanks, folks. It's been fun.
Thank you. Cheers, Tyler. Cheers, Nam. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Bye, all.
Well.